When Diddy's legal team filed the motion, it sent shockwaves through both the courtroom and the public. People didn't know what to focus on first: the fact that he's trying to buy his way out of jail, or the staggering amount he's offering, $50 million. This isn't just a high number, it's one of the largest bond requests ever made by a celebrity facing criminal sentencing. And it's not because Diddy's trying to flex his wealth. According to his lawyers, this is a matter of life or death. They argue that the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where Diddy is currently being held, is more than just uncomfortable. It's violent, it's unstable, and for someone like Diddy, it could be deadly. Now, that might sound dramatic, but there's documented history to back it up. The facility has faced multiple investigations over the past decade for abuse, guard misconduct, blackouts, and unchecked inmate violence. In 2019, there was a full-blown crisis after a power outage left hundreds of inmates in freezing conditions without heat or hot water for days. That incident sparked public protests, and that was before Diddy got there. His legal team says he's especially vulnerable, not just because of his fame, but because of the nature of the charges against him. In the world of prison politics, certain accusations, especially anything involving prostitution or abuse, can make an inmate a prime target. And then came the quote that made headlines. Diddy's lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, told the court, "Sean Combs should not be in jail for this conduct. In fact, he may be the only person currently in the United States jail for being any sort of John." It's a bold statement, but it raises a real question. Is Diddy being punished for the crime, or for who he is? Some say this is just another example of celebrity privilege, another millionaire trying to buy his way out of consequences, but others see it differently. They believe Diddy is being singled out, made into an example, and held to a standard no one else in his position would face. So what's the truth? Is this a desperate move by a man who knows what's waiting behind bars, or a calculated legal tactic by a billionaire who refuses to be treated like everyone else? Either way, the fact that he's offering $50 million to stay out tells you one thing: he's scared. But what exactly is going on inside that jail? Why is it being described as dangerous even for the average inmate? Let alone someone as high profile as Diddy? That's where this story gets even darker. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn isn't your average holding facility. It's known as one of the most volatile and overcrowded detention centers in the country, and for all the wrong reasons. It's the kind of place where routine turns into chaos, where power outages can last for days, and where even high-profile inmates aren't spared from danger. That's exactly why Diddy's legal team is sounding the alarm. They've described the jail as violent, unstable, and unsafe, especially for someone with Diddy's public image, and they're not exaggerating. This facility has been at the center of lawsuits, protests, and federal investigations over the past decade. In 2019, an entire wing of the jail lost power in the middle of winter. Inmates were left shivering in cold cells, with no heat, no lights, and no working phones for nearly a week. It sparked outrage across New York, with families rallying outside just to get their loved ones' blankets. But the more serious concern is the violence. There have been multiple incidents where inmates were harmed inside their cells, sometimes while officers looked the other way.
What's your name? Be quiet. You're gonna break my wrist.
In one case, a detainee was assaulted so badly he needed emergency medical treatment. In another, a man accused of a sensitive crime was attacked just days into his stay. That last part matters, because in the jail's unofficial social order, certain charges make you an automatic target. Allegations involving coercion or abuse, especially if they've made national headlines, can put an inmate in serious danger. Even though Diddy was cleared of the most serious accusations, the buzz around his trial hasn't gone away. And inside the MDC, other inmates are watching. They see the headlines, they recognize the face, and they remember the stories. In a place where privacy doesn't exist, Diddy's fame makes him both visible and vulnerable. It doesn't help him, it isolates him. His lawyers claim that since his arrival, he's already faced verbal threats and potential safety issues. He's being held in tighter quarters with restricted movement, not because he's violent, but because they're trying to protect him from everyone else. So when they asked for a $50 million bond, it wasn't just a flex, it was a message. He needs out, not because he's rich, but because they believe he won't make it to sentencing without something going wrong. It's a claim that's hard to ignore, and if even half of it is true, the stakes are higher than most people realize. But here's the thing, how did he even end up there in the first place, especially if he was cleared of trafficking? The real answer lies in what he was found guilty of, and it's not what most people think. When the verdict came in on July 2nd, the headlines made it sound like Diddy had just dodged the bullet of the decade, and in some ways, he had. He was found not guilty of the most explosive charges, sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit racketeering. Those were the ones that could have locked him away for life and forever destroyed his legacy. But here's where things get complicated. While the jury didn't convict on the worst allegations, they did find Diddy guilty on 2 federal charges: transportation to engage in prostitution. On paper, it might sound less serious, but each of those charges carries a potential 10-year prison sentence, meaning he's facing up to 20 years behind bars. And prosecutors weren't shy about what they believed those charges involved. They claimed Diddy had used his private jets and staff to transport women across state lines for what they called illicit purposes. In court, witnesses described a pattern: lavish parties, exclusive events, and behind-the-scenes pressure that blurred the line between lifestyle and exploitation. Even though the court didn't find enough to support the trafficking charge, the conviction on these lesser counts still paints a disturbing picture, and it's why the sentencing could go in either direction. So far, legal experts say he's unlikely to serve the full 20 years, but let's be clear, this isn't a slap on the wrist either. With sentencing scheduled for October 3rd, the judge still has wide discretion, and that uncertainty is exactly what has Diddy's camp scrambling. His lawyers argue that Diddy never profited directly from what happened. They claim he didn't benefit financially, and that prosecuting him under this statute is both unfair and unprecedented. They're also pointing out that most people convicted under similar charges aren't even held pre-sentencing, let alone denied bail, which raises the bigger question they keep pushing in court. Is Diddy being made an example of because of who he is? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, what he was convicted of still holds real weight. And the fact that the jury did find him guilty, even after 6 weeks of testimony, means the court believes something went very wrong. So, what were those disturbing allegations that dominated the trial? And why did the jury reject the biggest claims but still convict on the smaller ones? That part of the story is even more bizarre. Before the verdict, before the bond request, and before the headlines, there was one thing that had everyone talking: the allegations. And these weren't just rumors whispered online. They were claims made under oath in front of a federal court, backed by months of investigation and dozens of witness testimonies. At the center of it all was a term that most people had never heard before: freak-offs. According to court documents and witness statements, these were multi-day, substance-fueled events where Diddy allegedly pressured former partners into performing for invited guests, often alongside hired male workers. The prosecution painted a disturbing picture of control, manipulation, and blurred lines between consent and coercion. They claimed Diddy used his influence, connections, and financial leverage to create environments where no didn't feel like an option. One woman testified that she was invited under the impression that she'd be attending a private gathering, only to find herself in a room full of strangers, told to participate in acts she wasn't prepared for. She described feeling trapped, drugged, and emotionally cornered. Others echoed similar patterns: extravagant parties that started as exclusive VIP events and devolved into something darker, with cameras, security, and no clear way out. And while Diddy's team denied every accusation, insisting these were consensual adult experiences blown out of proportion, the damage had already been done. The public was listening, and the media was watching. Even though the jury ultimately rejected the trafficking and conspiracy charges, they didn't dismiss the overall atmosphere described in court. That's part of why the lesser convictions still hit so hard, because they confirmed that something happened, even if it didn't meet the legal threshold for the most serious crimes. And in cases like this, where influence and power are involved, proving control without visible force is incredibly difficult. That's what made this trial so complicated and so controversial. But beyond the courtroom, this case became something else: a social firestorm. Some saw it as a takedown of a once powerful mogul, while others believed it was a warning shot, a sign that celebrity status doesn't mean immunity anymore. Still, questions lingered. If Diddy wasn't found guilty of trafficking, why were the stories so extreme? And why did the jury believe just enough to convict, but not enough to destroy him completely? That strange in-between space is what Diddy's legal team has been trying to control ever since. And now, their entire strategy revolves around a single idea: that Diddy shouldn't be in jail at all. From the moment the verdict was announced, Diddy's legal team has been on the offensive, not just appealing the decision, but questioning the entire foundation of the case. Their main argument: that Diddy is being unfairly singled out and held to a different standard than anyone else facing similar charges. His lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, has been clear. Sean Combs should not be in jail for this conduct. In fact, he may be the only person currently in a United States jail for being any sort of John. They argue that most people accused of transportation for prostitution aren't even detained pre-sentencing, let alone denied bond. The fact that Diddy is being treated this way, they say, shows a bias fueled by his fame and the media storm around his trial. The defense also points to the lack of financial gain as a crucial detail. They insist that Diddy never profited from the alleged activities, distancing him from the traditional profile of someone who runs such operations. That's not all. They highlight that Diddy's case involved complex personal relationships rather than clear-cut criminal enterprises. His lawyers say this context was lost amid the sensational headlines, and the jury was swayed by emotion instead of facts. In court, they've painted Diddy as a man caught in a messy personal saga, one amplified by the spotlight but not criminally orchestrated. Furthermore, the legal team has emphasized the dangerous conditions Diddy faces behind bars, conditions they say no one, celebrity or not, should have to endure. Their bond motion isn't just a request for freedom, it's a plea for safety and dignity. But critics argue this defense is a familiar playbook for the rich and famous, using money and influence to escape consequences others must face. And yet, whether you believe Diddy's team or his detractors, the one thing that can't be denied is that this case raises bigger questions about justice, privilege, and how the legal system handles high-profile defendants. Is Diddy's fight for bond a sign of his vulnerability or a demonstration of power? The answer lies in what happens next. Because after the initial denial of his release, his lawyers didn't give up. They made a second attempt, bringing new evidence and fresh concerns to the judge's attention. Next, we'll look at the story behind that second bid and what it means for Diddy's future. Right after the verdict in early July, Diddy's legal team made their first push for his release. They argued that since he wasn't convicted on the most serious charges, there was no reason to keep him behind bars while awaiting sentencing. But the judge wasn't convinced. U.S. District Judge Arun Subramanian denied the request, emphasizing the seriousness of the remaining convictions and the potential risk factors. The decision sent a clear message: Diddy wasn't walking free anytime soon. Fast forward to this month, and Diddy's lawyers are back at it with a new bond request. But this time, they added fresh concerns about his safety inside the jail. They pointed to recent incidents of violence within his unit at the Metropolitan Detention Center, arguing that conditions have worsened since the trial ended. According to the filing, verbal threats and increased tensions put Diddy at heightened risk. This second attempt isn't just about legal technicalities, it's about protecting their client from potential harm while he awaits sentencing. Whether the judge will see it that way remains to be seen. But this move has reignited public debate about jail safety, celebrity treatment, and the justice system's ability to balance punishment with protection. With sentencing set for October 3rd, the clock is ticking, and the decision on bond could come any day now. So, will Diddy get that $50 million bond and walk free before sentencing, or will he have to face the consequences behind bars? The answer could change everything. Diddy's case isn't just about one man facing prison, it's a window into a much larger conversation about how fame and fortune intersect with justice. For most people accused of similar crimes, posting a $50 million bond isn't even an option. They either stay behind bars or struggle to meet much smaller bail amounts. But when you're Sean Combs, a billionaire with decades of influence, the rules change, or at least they seem to. This disparity sparks heated debates. Is the legal system designed to protect everyone equally, or does wealth and celebrity tilt the scales? Supporters of Diddy argue that he's being unfairly targeted because of his name and the media attention around his case. They say he's facing a public trial by headlines, and the justice system is using him as an example to show it holds even the powerful accountable. On the other hand, critics say this is classic celebrity privilege, using resources to buy freedom and delay justice. They point to how often high-profile defendants avoid jail time or receive lighter sentences compared to everyday people. And it's not just about money, it's also about power, the ability to hire top lawyers, influence public opinion, and negotiate deals others can't. But there's another angle. Some legal experts say Diddy's case could set a precedent. If he's granted bail with such a huge bond despite serious convictions, it might change how courts view risk and fairness in future high-profile cases. That could mean both good and bad things. On one hand, it could encourage judges to consider individual circumstances more carefully. On the other, it might deepen public mistrust in a system already seen as favoring the rich and famous. For the fans and critics watching closely, Diddy's fight is about more than his freedom. It's about how justice is served in America today. As his sentencing date looms, the world waits to see if wealth and fame can truly influence the outcome of a case that has captured national attention. Sean Diddy Combs' case is a complex story of power, privilege, and the harsh realities of the justice system. From the staggering $50 million bond request to the dangerous conditions inside the Brooklyn Detention Center, every detail raises bigger questions about fairness and safety. While Diddy avoided the most serious charges, the convictions he faces still carry heavy consequences, and his fight to avoid jail time highlights the tension between wealth and justice like few cases before it. Whether you see this as a billionaire using his resources to protect himself or as a man genuinely at risk behind bars, one thing is clear. This isn't just about one person, it's about how our society treats fame, influence, and accountability. With sentencing just weeks away on October 3rd, the final chapter is still unwritten. What do you think? Should someone with Diddy's resources face the same conditions as everyone else? Or does his situation demand special consideration? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you believe about justice, fairness, and how this story will unfold.